Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities space. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Coniagas, a Canadian junior mining company focused on nickel, copper, cobalt, and platinum group metals in Quebec. It's Frank Basa. Great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much, Jesse.
Thank you for being here. I want to start by diving into a bit of a macro overview when it comes to the different metals that Coniagas mines and is focused on, starting with nickel. What's the investment thesis there at this moment in time? And what about nickel is it important for investors to be aware of in terms of supply-demand dynamics?
There's a study that we looked at. It's called the Wood-Mackenzie study. Basically, between now and 2030, there's going to be an 85% shortfall in nickel, as well as all the other metals. So most of the metals are going to be a critical shortfall. So it's not that easy. People don't understand. You got to find a resource, develop it, and then you have to find a place to send a concentrate. Now, in the event you produce a concentrate, for example, in northern Quebec, there's no facilities in Quebec to treat the concentrate. None. Actually, they have some in Ontario, but they're running at capacity. So, of course, they will not receive your concentrate. So the concentrate has to go offshore. And then if it does go offshore, uh, for example, we'll focus on nickel. There's only a few places you can send it in the world, and there's only a few places in the world that can make nickel sulfate to be on spec for the battery market. So what we've done, and we'll get into it in the process of this meeting, we do things what we call real time, and our objective here is to make sure the product gets produced as a final form. So it's kind of a vertically integrated. And then by doing that, also it lowers the costs, improves the quality of the product, and then we try to get the product to the market sooner by the way we do it versus trying to do stage wise and see, if somebody can take your product and who can produce it and who can treat it. And basically, there's a lot of uncertainty in those steps. So I think nickel is a critical one. There's a lot of it around, but apparently not enough. Of course, if we take nickel out, it's basically in the lithium-ion battery, nickel is a critical component. I know they're talking about different types of batteries. The problem is with different types of batteries, they're not recyclable. So, you have an iron phosphate battery. Nobody wants to recycle that. There's a whole bunch of other ones out there. Same thing. So the lithium-ion battery might be around for quite a while because it is recyclable and there's metals in it that actually can be payable. So nickel is a critical one. There's not, I know there's a lot of it around. Apparently, there's not enough of it around.
Well, let's talk about copper. This is another metal that has received a lot of attention recently, particularly as it ran up to all-time highs around $5 before coming back down again, although it does appear to be ticking up once more. Copper is a critical one because it's required for all forms of electrification across the world. You have the story of a lot of developing economies creating a new middle class that with that comes, the evolution to wanting refrigeration, air conditioning, computers, all of these things which require copper. We've also seen reports from people like S&P Global and a lot of others talking about the major shortfall in copper supply up ahead, because as we know, copper mines take so much time and money to be brought from discovery deposit to an actual operating mine. Talk to us about what you're seeing when it comes to the macro overview of the copper sector.
Copper is equally critical, if not more critical, for the electric vehicle market because you need copper to take the power from the generating station to a charging station. And without the copper, there's no charging station. And copper is very, very critical. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was a very large copper mine in Panama, which the government decided to shut down. That's very hard to replace. A lot of these mines take years to actually come to a point whereby they produce a copper concentrate or copper metal. So to replace what's taken out of there is devastating. It's just unbelievable. And large deposits are not that easy to find on a global scale. You look, there's only a few people or I should say, few companies that can undertake these type of projects that produce copper at a reasonable cost. And these small copper projects is doesn't work. It used to do it years ago. See, that what we're trying to do is develop a large project with ours in Quebec, and the reason we like Quebec is because of the cheap power. You know, Quebec is all hydroelectric power. It's been green forever and a day, and the power costs are reasonable. And you know, we could never build a big deposit in Ontario. The power costs are just so high that it makes it uneconomical. Even if you had a wonderful deposit in Ontario, it wouldn't work, right?
Yeah, you're one of several people I've spoken to that have echoed that sentiment on Quebec being just a fantastic jurisdiction in general for the mining sector. I want to talk about cobalt here. This is a metal that actually isn't widely discussed. There has been concerns raised about ethically sourced cobalt, a lot of it coming from places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there's concerns over a lot of issues there. Talk to us about the current supply demand dynamics for cobalt and why you think it's such a vital metal as well.
Just to go very quickly to the vital component, 6 years ago, we were actually in Japan talking to Nissan, the car dealer. And we said, hey, you know, aren't you guys kind of worried Toshiba built a battery with no cobalt? And he said, you know what? Commercialize a battery, a different type of battery, 20 years. Then he said about cobalt, he said, you can't take it out of the lithium ion battery. It makes the battery unstable. So what they've been doing is they've been playing with the chemistry in these lithium ion batteries. So they'd say, okay, you know what? Let's lower the cobalt level because we have to, because we don't have the cobalt, replace it by nickel. So there's a certain threshold number that they say they can't go below because then the battery just gets unstable, overheats, and starts on fire. Now, this is coming right from the car manufacturer. You know, it's not we're talking to all these people. Oh, we're gonna do this, do that. The other thing is, you know, they're making all these other batteries that have no cobalt, and they actually work like iron phosphate batteries. The only problem with that, they're not recyclable. So there goes your green component out the door. Right? So the cobalt, very critical. We spent a fair amount of time in China, in Japan, and we met with South Koreans, all very much concerned there is not enough cobalt. Now, we're very much aware about this because we work in these countries about, it's a lot of challenging things, especially when it comes to child labor. It's not just that, but it's that's most people are focusing on that. And it's not just the cobalt, it's also gold, it's also diamonds, it's also, you name it. Everything involves child labor. So what we proposed, and we've been, for example, in the DRC since 2017, looking, and I said, okay, this is what we would like to do. And I've worked in some of these countries. You know, I was in Burkina Faso. They sent me there to fix things, so to speak. In reality, it's a team of us that shows up. And so how we solve some of the child labor situations, we bought a soccer ball. I know this sounds a little odd, but the kids like to play soccer. So they like to play soccer better than, you know, working in the fields. Much of the disappointment of the people. But then in turn, what we did was we built clinics for the benefit of the women. And then for the men, for the benefit of the men, we gave them tools. So we gave them generators, we gave them other stuff. So in other words, they ended up producing more cobalt without any children. And you know what? They did a better job of it. They didn't make a big mess, so to speak. So the stuff we're looking at right now in the DRC, some of these things are waste piles. They've been around for decades, and basically all this waste pile has been hand cobbed. And so they have these low grade waste piles that nobody finds valuable. So our process called the Retox can work with these low grade piles because our process, the way it was designed, it's high sophistication, low tech. In other words, you can install this plant in some field in the DRC, and you can train somebody in 3 to 6 months that they can run it. And you know, technical people can monitor the program with a laptop anywhere in the world. So it's a very, very elemental process. It was kind of developed over a 6 year time frame. It went through a lab test, bench scale, a couple of pilot plants, and then plant trials. So, and we produce product. You know, we use this process to produce product. It was very complex for Sumitomo in Japan, so we were able to make it on spec. So what you need to do is you have to look at improve the environment. Like what you're really worried here is the quality of the water, because a lot of these piles generate a lot of undesirable effluent. So you're going to clean that up. You will hopefully make life better for the children. I hope they like to play soccer still, like I did this years ago in Burkina Faso. And of course, clinics are very important for the women, and give the men better tools. When you look at these people, the stuff they work with, just, shovels and bowls and, and buckets and all that. So, you show up, you give them a generator, you give them some better equipment, and you know what? You get the same production, if not better, and more, right? And it works, and you have to give them fair value for their product, because a lot of these people, when you look at what they get, and they have to mine a lot of material just to return a high grade, and the thing goes offshore, and it actually leaves unprocessed offshore. And so right now, we've been invited, formally, to be there in September. And we said, okay, we're interested, but we're not buyers. We don't buy product. We said, we'll be toll operators if you want it. We'll build a plant there if you want it. But these are the things we like to meet. They agreed to it and said, yeah, this is our philosophy as well. So we put an agricultural component to that. In other words, so that they can learn something about the agriculture. Most of these people are basically people of the land, so to speak. These informals don't own anything, and they just it's hard to imagine they don't own anything and they make very little money, and they should be doing much better than that. So we also, like I said, we spoke to more government people. Actually, we were invited by the government people to attend this meeting over about a 10-day time frame. We were well received. We're working with a group of Americans as well, and we've already met these people. In Toronto, there's a place called Harbor 60, which is an overpriced, wonderful steakhouse. And we had some wonderful conversations. And then from that thing led to another meeting with the people that came here from the DRC. So we met with them, and now they're inviting us to the DRC. So basically what we're doing there is we're trying to eliminate liabilities, and we're trying to improve the quality of life for the people, not just the children, but for everybody. And what we're also trying to do is produce a product that the world desperately needs. Like when you look at a Wood McKinsey report, the shortfall 2030 for cobalt, 167%. And I think that shortfall will get even larger. It's just, I was surprised. Like when I met with the Chinese 6 years ago in China, and I said, "Wait, you've been talking to me?" And he said, "Well, you know what? We're hoping that maybe you might be able to supply future cobalt." And I said, "Sure, if the model is there, let's do it." But the key thing there is, like, one of the things we should remember, the Chinese really make a quick decision and they make it happen. And if you look at why they're so successful on the global scale, they just make it happen. While, the Western economies will take weeks, months, and years to make a decision to do something. It's unfortunate. We're losing that opportunity. We're losing that, when you look at right now, an electric vehicle is cheaper to operate than a fossil fuel vehicle, right? And sooner or later, it'll be cheaper to buy than a fossil fuel vehicle. It's going the right way. It's just going the right way.
Yeah, and China famously producing some very low cost electric vehicles these days. Yeah, and fantastic overview of your work there over in Burkina Faso and the DRC. That's great that you're able to make a difference for the better. And great overview of cobalt as well. Again, a metal that's not discussed very often. I want to shift to platinum group metals. What is their role in all of this? We know PGMs are used heavily in catalytic converters for internal combustion engines. Do you still see that being a demand driver, and how do they fit into the EV story and what you guys are doing as well?
The thing is, we hit quite a few drill holes with very high platinum group element. We didn't report it as a part of our potential resource and all that. I think it's too early stage, but normally the way we do it is the Reto-Ox process has a base metal component at the front end and the precious metal component at the back end. So the normal approach is, we did this in one of our other companies, the precious metal pays the bills and all the other battery metals come along basically as a free ride. So this way we can handle these massive fluctuations. The price of metals, precious metals, usually don't fluctuate as much as that. But cobalt will fluctuate, copper will fluctuate, and nickel will fluctuate, while the precious metals are not too bad and they stay pretty consistent. And you can sell that anywhere at any time. While trying to sell cobalt or nickel or copper, you need a long-term contract, and not that easy to secure. And a lot of people think they can, and even though you might be producing a cobalt, copper, nickel con in northern Quebec, there's no place in Quebec to treat this material, or on Ontario. We have two facilities in Ontario that can take it, but they're full up. So what do? You send it offshore then, right? So, it has to go through two stages. Usually, it goes to a smelter, then goes to a leach plant. So more than likely two separate plants. But Quebec has nothing like that. So our property, if you look at it on the map, you'll notice it's close to port. If the grades are high enough, we'll be a direct shipper. We'll put it on a ship, and it'll probably end up in Europe or end up in Asia.
Great. Well, I want to hone in more on Coniagas right now. Could you start by giving us an overview of the company?
Yeah, the company was actually a spin out from another company we had. And normally we do these spin outs when the markets are really bad at the bottom. And the reason we do this is kind of a tax angle for our investors. They're getting shares. The way we spin it out, the investors, the first company, get a share in a warrant. And they're actually quite large investors, so to speak, in this new company. And we usually distribute these things over a 3-year, 4-year time frame. And it's done in such a way that in the event they get these shares and warrants, they're not taxable. So we do it at the bottom of the cycle. And then we have a tendency of taking this thing in really what we call it. We drill, we talk, and we drive the stock. It's kind of a simple model. We've been pretty good at doing that. And so we just love what we do. And we're driven by success because our salaries are quite low, but we get a lot of options. And that's how we make money for our shareholders, and everybody makes money. Now, the company itself, this time we created our own. Usually we take a distressed shell. This time we decided not to use a distressed shell because a lot of these distressed shells we found had skeletons that didn't show up on the financials. So we created a new one. It's very tightly held. Basically, when you look at it between Coniagas and the shareholders or the management, we own 50%. Very tightly held. And in reality, there's only, out of the 30 million shares that are listed, only 5.2 million are available for trading. These are the shares we gave to our shareholders of Nord. And we've done this before. And normally what happens is about a third of that is dumped over a period of time. Then after the dumping stops and the stock just runs up by itself. And normally what we do, if you look at some of the historically what we've done, we do a between 10 to 30 fold increase in share price over about an 18, 36 month time frame. So, like I said, we're driven by our ability to succeed because where we really make our money is on the share price. So it's a very simple company. We have no offices. It's a virtual company. I am a contractor, even though I might be management. We're all contractors. We're designed like that. In other words, if somebody knocks on our door and says, we'd like to have the company Coniagas, it's a simple thing. We give them the keys, give me paper for paper, and we're gone. So there's nothing complicated the way we do things. Nobody has a luxurious car. Like I said, it's a very simple thing. We raise money, it goes in the ground, and it doesn't go anywhere else. So pretty good at what we do. It's our third company, and it's a tough market. Our other two companies suffered pretty badly in this market. Hopefully, we'll turn it around because that's our skill set, taking a distressed company and turning it around.
That is fascinating. I want to hone in on the Graal deposit and get some more details there. Could you speak to the potential size of the project, the infrastructure in place in the area, and your exploration and drill results to date?
See, right now, we took this over. Actually, it was drilled by previous people. Actually, the last people worked on it was a group called Soaring, which is a Quebec geological group. And so we took their properties, put a whole bunch of other properties together, came about 6,000 hectares. So in 2004, they said, we got about, and this is the Quebec government, they're very conservative. They said, okay, maybe 30 to 60 million tons. And they might have, 0.8% nickel, 0.3% copper, and 0.1% cobalt. We said, we're good. We did about 17,000 meters of drilling, spent $6 million. I said, you know what? Bottom of the market, good time to do a spin out. If anything, we might be able to do a real good deal here. And, 18 to 36 months from now, it might be trading at 100 million plus market cap. Now, there's another company in our area. They've done a wonderful job called Power Nickel. Their drill results that came out this year, 2024, are equal to our drill results we produced in 2022. So we do a thing called meter percentage. And when you look at the multiplication of some of the grades that we have to theirs, actually almost the same thing. So we have a market cap of about 4 million. They have a market cap 170 million. So the potential of making something happen, pretty good. We're in the right part of the world. Quebec is really supportive of the resource development. We have a small drill program outlined. We're still trying to see how long the structure is. Right now, we only found it's about 6 kilometers. It could be longer than that. Then we'd like to do a few deep drill holes. It's in the zone. The reason they call it Graal, it's a Graal. If you see the shape of it, it's shaped like a martini glass, and that might be where the real super high grade is. Right now, we're drilling on sort of like on the fringe of that deposit. So, and also what we're doing is what we call, a couple of majors knocked on our door. Actually, last week, one of them knocked on our door, and they said, "Oh, you have any information?" I said, "No, it's just a small drill program." But, the reality is we put these things together, and basically when we leave, it's a turnkey. If it becomes big enough, basically, we need their type of skill set and their access to money to develop this ad. So basically, it's something we put together. They come to a point that this is interesting. We walk away, and we're happy. We do well. They do well.
And could you provide a bit more color on the infrastructure in place in the jurisdiction?
Over there, what we've done, we always try to get a property that has what we call reasonable infrastructure. So basically, all-weather highway road to our property. There's power to the site. There's a village that our people can stay at. So everything is there for us. We try to stay away from what we call these fly-in operations. And the reason we like this thing is it's been, kind of looked out by people who had spent a fair amount of time on it. So basically, all we did was put together a lot of these properties, wonderful infrastructure, a place for people to stay, which is critical because you can't run these projects, if they're hundreds of kilometers away from a road.
Absolutely. And you released some news recently regarding Coniagas producing cobalt and nickel sulfates for EV batteries using the Re2Ox process. You mentioned Re2Ox a few times already in the conversation. Could you provide some more details and break that down for us?
Yeah, the Retox process was actually developed over about a 6 year time frame. We spent $8 million on it. It was designed to be what we call high sophistication, low tech. Now, the reason we did that was basically you can take this process and stick it somewhere in the DRC, and you can train somebody within 3 to 6 months, they can run it. And anybody from the technical group can monitor it with a laptop anywhere in the world. So basically, it's designed for a plant or process whereby you might have a power failure. A lot of these third world countries normally have power failures, and they have a power failure on a plant, and then they could take weeks to get going. This is simple. Have a power failure, we're good. Power gets up, you just keep on doing what you're doing. It's a simple process. Anybody can run it. So the process that we've used it, we've used it to produce product in the past, and we use SGS to do all our work. So the quality of SGS work is excellent. They're kind of a top tier company in the world. They're Swiss based and they produce excellent quality of work. So the process itself, like I said, there's actually two parts to it. The first part is the base metal component. The second part is precious metal components. So you can also do precious metals. So that's why the two is in there. It's actually two different stages to the process. It's, like I said, very elemental to run. We can train anybody within 3 to 6 months to be able to run this thing. And it's one of those things whereby it's fairly safe. It's also a zero discharge type of facility. So in other words, most of the copper, cobalt, nickel right now that's processed goes to a smelter. This thing there's no stack to this thing. It's a closed loop, zero discharge type of facility.
That is very interesting. I want to touch on the Graal project, go back to that, and wonder if you could give us a timeline for the next steps for the project moving forward.
Normally, what we do here, Jess, is we do things in stages. So, like I said, we drill, we talk, we drive the stock. So, in other words, we're looking at doing a small raise and a small drill program, and then normally the stock goes up. So far, for what we've done in the past, it seems to work. We'll see that it hopefully carries on that way. But basically, we drill, we go all over the place. We do what we call meet and greets. We're all over, and we run what we call a 6 week cycle. So we meet all these family offices. We wine and dine them to wherever we are. And normally we do like 3 meetings in one city. For example, in Frankfurt, we're on a train. Then we go to another city, or then we end up in Zurich. So we do things by train. It seems to work much better. And, we kind of arrive and do like 3 meetings a day. And so it's a bit of a rush. We do it on a 6-week cycle. So in other words, every 6 weeks you'll see us. And so what they do is they have a steady feed of information. They can talk to me, but our results come out every 2 weeks. So there's a steady flow of information. So everybody knows what we're doing, where we're going. And the other things we do is what we call real time. In other words, in addition to the drill program, usually we're already working on the permits. A lot of these things, permits are challenging. Some places, one of the properties we worked on took us 2 years to get our permits, but the permits are in order. So in other words, somebody knocks on our door, we give them the keys, it's turnkey. In other words, you can go in production right away.
Well, is there anything that we haven't covered so far that you think it's important for potential shareholders to keep in mind about the company?
I think it's the thing that people should remember, the shareholders should remember, we're exceptionally lean. Money doesn't go for rent for an office. Like I'm a contractor, and the way our people, we all have a base salary, but here in Coniagas, actually nobody gets paid. I'm not being paid in Coniagas. Nobody gets paid in Coniagas. So they'll be getting options. We haven't gotten options. Nobody has options. So our success has always been, and our people's success, which is also our shareholder success, is that the stock goes up. And that's what we do. And we're in the field. Is exploration. You're not going to find anything sitting in an office in front of a laptop. So our track record of finding things, pretty good. We're driven to succeed because, if the share price goes up, everybody does well.
Great. Well, I'll put a link in the description below to the Coniagas website, as well as social media for people who want to follow the company. Thank you so much, Frank, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the audience. It's been a blast.
It was wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.